we're doing all the things that one would do to get to get ready, but we're still trying to figure our way through.
Do I think I could be that leader? Yes, but we are still working through things, and we'll figure it out. I've never lost a race. I said that then. I still say that now. I'm not going to lose now, but stay tuned.
Okay, so they sound like two interested presidential aspirants. Right now, the only Republican who has announced for president and that he wants the job is Donald Trump, who had the job. We're told that President Biden himself will confirm his intentions sometime after the State of the Union address. No way of knowing for sure, but we do know that, again, on the Republican field, it could be getting quite crowded. Lee Carter, GOP pollster, Doug Schoen, Democratic pollster. Lee, first on the teasing of some of these prominent Republicans, and there'll be many more, I suspect, who are now saying, you know, we might suit up for battle, whether Donald Trump's in there or not. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's not all that surprising. I think the Republican Party right now is really trying to find its identity. It seems like Trump and DeSantis are the two ones that everybody are talking about. But if you think back to 2015, at this point in the game, we had no idea who was going to be the front runner. Donald Trump didn't even announce until late June. And so what we're going to see is a bunch of different folks sort of tipping their toes in the water, trying to understand how people are going to react to them, trying to define what their lane would be in the Republican Party. And I would expect by this summer, we're probably going to see I expect north of 10 to 15 candidates to try and figure out if they're going to take that stage. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these conversations, a lot more of these interviews, a lot of people hinting at it, seeing how people are going to react. But the field is wide open right now.
You know, if that were the case, and you have that many, you know, going for the Republican nomination, Doug, you could argue that this is 2016 all over again. Donald Trump successfully was able to whittle that field down. It's not to pick them off one at a time in the battle states, where if he has one more percent of the vote than the next guy, he gets the higher plurality of that state's delegates. So I'm just wondering, does that actually play to his advantage?
Yes, it absolutely does. Neil, the polling now shows head-to-head he is even with DeSantis when it's a two-way race in a multi-candidate field. If Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence run, Trump is well ahead. So your scenario is a real-world one, and one we could see play out.
So let me ask you about that. Right now, if it were a battle between Trump and DeSantis, just with the Republican Party, depending on the poll, Lee, he wins 55 to 45%. Now, when it's a crowded field, again, it's advantage Trump, especially if they echo a lot of the policies he had as president, no matter some of the personality issues that come up and give people pause. So are those who are trying to think that this time is different because of the controversies that have been raised and everything that rekindles January 6th, what do you think?
Well, I think at this point, it's really too soon to tell because no one's really defined what their candidacy is going to look like. No one has been up on stage fighting toe-to-toe with Donald Trump. And it's a very, very different game once you're on that stage. And so at this point, it's a lot of name recognition. There's not a lot, to really hold on to, except I'm either going to vote for Trump or against Donald Trump at this point. And DeSantis is really the only one who people understand what he might bring to the table. So at this point, I still think if there's many candidates out there, it is an advantage to Donald Trump. But we've got to see how candidates like Nikki Haley, like Pompeo, like Tim Scott, like all of these others define what their party, what their candidacy would be about. What are they going to do for the American people? What's going to be different? We haven't heard their stories yet, and I think that could make a difference. But certainly at this stage, the way it's looking is the more candidates that are out there, the more it helps Donald Trump. The one thing I will say is that the DeSantis vote does pick off some Trump supporters, and that could really help the other candidates as well.
Real quickly on Joe Biden then, Doug Schoen, there's talk that, this document thing doesn't go well, others will emerge to challenge him. Do you buy that?
I think that's extremely unlikely. I worked for Bill Clinton in the White House, been observing for a very long time. Very hard to unseat an incumbent president. But you never say never. We didn't really know 2-3 weeks ago that there would be 3 sources of documents. True. The White House has clearly been on its back foot on this whole thing. So time will tell. But I would say today, most likely, that it'll be Biden and Harris.
You said time will tell. I love that line.
Well,
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.